AM Agenda.
Hello and welcome to the program. An international study of education standards has cast doubt on Prime Minister Gillard's goal of elevating Australia to the top 5 worldwide in education over the next decade. The reading test of primary school students found that Australia came in 27th of 48 nations that participated, and our primary school students, only 25% of them met minimum standards. With me on the program to look at this and the other matters of the day, Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg and Labor MP Ed Husic. Gentlemen, good morning. Ed, the Education Minister, the Schools Education Minister Peter Garrett says that this is a wake-up call. It sure is.
Yeah, and I was listening to your intro where you said it cast doubt on our plans. If anything, it emphasises the need to redouble efforts. I mean, we've put a lot into doubling the investment in schools, changing learning environments, particularly through our BER investments, the type of things we want to do in response to the Gonski report, lifting the focus on individual student need, and also looking at the top performers in teaching and improving the quality of teaching as well. So really this emphasises that we've got to get ahead in terms of school investment and make sure that we make these results a thing of the past.
This is obviously something, Josh, that hasn't happened overnight. It's hard to blame one government or indeed one level of government. And it's not just about reading. The math standards as well stagnating over the last 16 years.
Look, I think you can absolutely blame the Labor government. I mean, they live in a parallel universe, Kieran. They are responsible for the failures in our schools. Let's not forget they had a $500 million literacy and numeracy program, which the Auditor-General caned. He said it was a completely inefficient and ineffective program. And the fact is that 25% of our students in grade 4 are not meeting the minimum standards. Well, hang on, those kids in grade 4 started their schooling when Labor was in government. So Labor is just passing the buck. It's, again, more spin, no substance. On our side, and Chris Pine... But Chris Pine...
I've been critical of the government for various things like the Building the Education Revolution and funding and so on that could have been spent more wisely or at least more efficiently. But tell me, how can you say that it's just one government when education is obviously something which is, and systems are developed over years and years and years?
Because the Labor Party is not talking about improving teacher training. They're not talking about giving greater autonomy to principals. That's what we're talking about, and they're the lessons out of Asia. Chris Pine is making speech after speech about those issues. This government just simply thinks that if they spend more money, they'll get better results. That is not the experience in the rest of the world,
let's
and it's
bring
not the
Ed
experience in Australia.
Ed Husic, what do you say to Josh there, that the government needs to take accountability and saying a wake-up call isn't enough, that they've got to take accountability as well?
Well, I'm going to tell him it's AM Agenda. He's supposed to be awake already. I mean, how can he not say, look at the fact that we're already talking about teacher quality, about involving principals or allowing principals more decision-making power? And if he's worried about education, then I'd like to hear him say on this program that Premier O'Farrell's plan to cut $1.7 billion out of New South Wales schools and TAFEs is a bad thing.
But it's not just about the money, is it, Ed? It's not just the money, it's the standards, and that's what Josh is talking about, that there needs to be a greater focus on that rather than just throwing cash at it.
No, agreed, and that's what and Kieran, that is what we're doing in terms of all the National Schoolers Improvement Plan. What we are trying to do is to ensure that the standards in terms of, like I made reference earlier, in terms of teacher quality, that we look at the way that we're teaching students as well, that be changed fundamentally. I mean, what we are looking at here is fundamentally changing the way that education is delivered in this country by making sure the investment's there and making sure the standards are there.
All right, I want to go across a few other issues at the moment. And a Labor MP, Michael Danby, has written in today's Daily Telegraph, Ed, that, and it was quite an extraordinary attack, to be frank. He says it was unforgivable, unacceptable behaviour from the Foreign Minister, Bob Carr, when he mustered numbers within the caucus against the Prime Minister's position. This relates to the vote at the United Nations elevating the status of the Palestinian territories. What do you make of this comment today, and this, not just comment, but a full-page piece that he's written in today's Daily Telegraph?
Well, look, being someone I've worked a lot with Michael, and I've got a lot of time for him, and we've worked on issues of concern, particularly in terms of the international space that we've talked about within Parliament, so I've got a lot of time for him personally. I'm very disappointed that he's written this article. Look, there are decisions that get made, from time to time within government. You have your say, and it may not necessarily work out the way that you want, but you can't. I don't think it's right to ventilate those views in the way that has happened in the last 24 hours. Does this mean it's open season for any minister that takes a decision that you don't like? I just don't think it's right.
But did Bob Carr undermine the Prime Minister on this, that he phoned around and mustered numbers in a concerted campaign to undermine her authority?
No, I don't think so at all.
Josh, you wrote a piece yesterday very critical of Bob Carr, saying he's immodest and for no reason. Is it a bit of hyperbole from you on that front? He's obviously had some successes, including the UN Security Council bid, a few others on consular matters, big consular matters.
Oh, well, I can tell you the Stern Hugh consular matter is nowhere to be seen. Look, Bob Carr is vain. Bob Carr is writing his own memoirs about a job he's yet to finish.
Wrong.
Bob Carr has been a failure as a foreign minister. In his first week in the job, he threatened our near and important neighbour, Papua New Guinea, with sanctions, and he's done nothing to stop the boats arriving through Indonesia. And now we know that he's treacherous, because he was picking up the phone, ringing caucus members directly, and this is Michael Danby's words, directly undermining the will and the wish of the Prime Minister. Now, when Bob Carr was Premier, he wouldn't have allowed his Treasurer, Michael Egan, to be ringing around backbenchers to get the numbers on electricity privatisation. That's what Michael Danby said. And the problem for Ed and Bob Carr is that the truth hurts. And Bob Carr is now out there alone, trying to undermine the Prime Minister, and we've seen the Prime Minister's polling go through the floor, so I think it's only a question of time before Bob Carr starts flexing his muscles to remove her as Prime Minister.
Unfortunately for the Prime Minister, I don't think he was out there alone doing that, but Ed Husic, your response to Josh's critique of Senator Carr's performance?
I've disagreed with Josh on so many things in the past. I hate to pile it on again just in the lead up to Christmas. I think this should be a pleasant experience rather than a difficult one. But having said that, I think Bob Carr's doing a fantastic job as Foreign Minister. You keep going on with this line, Josh, that he's writing his memoirs when he's already come out and said that is patently wrong and ruled that out.
And if
Julie Bishop's doing such a great job as Shadow Foreign Minister, where's your announcement of an agreement with Indonesia on, as you trample out this line again and again about stop the boats? Finally, if you want to talk about decision-making processes, our ERC doesn't work as an entrapment exercise like yours, putting out the $70 billion surplus figure or cuts figure within your own ERC to work out who's leaking from your own expenditure review committee. So please,
let's go to Josh. I want to, on the substance of that policy. I know you feel very strongly about it when it comes to Israel, but in terms of the way that unfolded within the Labor Party, isn't it appropriate that they have a robust debate about it and then come to a position? It's happened many times on your side of politics as well.
But it's quite unbelievable for the Prime Minister to have one position in her cabinet and only two cabinet ministers, Bill Shorten and Stephen Conroy, to come out behind her, and all the other cabinet ministers to have a differing view. And then the day after the caucus decision on the Palestine vote, for members like Bob Carr and others to go out to leak to the press to show that they had a victory over the Prime Minister. That's what's most alarming on this. And the other point is that it's put away decades of bipartisanship in terms of the support for Israel. Weeks ago, Israel was facing thousands of deadly rockets coming over from Hamas in the Gaza Strip, those rockets being supplied by Iran. Now, everything that Israel does is not right. Nobody is saying that. But they are a democracy in the Middle East. Hamas is a terrorist organisation that is committed to the destruction of Israel. So when it comes to Australia as a democratic country, we would have been in good company standing by Canada, the United States, the Czech Republic and others in supporting Israel.
And a telephone. Come on.
Finally,
Josh, that's...
On this issue, Ed, it is the only democracy in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's a long-standing ally. Has Labor thrown that support out for political expediency?
Well, I think we've also welcomed other democracies in the region as well, such as Egypt, you know, in terms of being able to...
That's a good example. That's a really good example this week. When the presidential rule by presidential decree.
No, but the thing is, Josh, Israel is absolutely the preeminent in terms of democracy in the Middle East. And there are others that we need to be able to embrace democracy as well. And so we need to make sure that process accelerates. Your points about Hamas are quite wrong, and I have said previously as well that what Hamas has done in terms of trying to kill Israelis is wrong and should be condemned in the strongest terms. Just as I've also said I believe it was disproportionate to have the Israeli Defence Forces target residential areas. I understand the military objectives in terms of trying to deal with the threat presented by Hamas, but I think there's some disproportionate action there. I think the settlements decisions aren't helpful, and the best thing that needs to occur is that the parties enter into direct negotiations for peace. And I think that definitely does need to happen.
All right, let's... there's one other issue I want to touch on, gents, before we go. It's something that's been an issue for the Navy for a long, long time. The front page of the Financial Review today reporting the next chapter in it, Ed Husic, about our submarines, that they're operational for half the time of comparable fleets internationally. This report to be released today by Defence Minister Smith. And they've stacked up the price of getting one off the shelf foreign built or one built in South Australia, and it's a lot cheaper and a lot faster. Is it only for political reasons that the government is going to push ahead with Australian-built submarines out of Adelaide?
No, I don't think so. A number of things. One is I'd really, I think it'd be better for us to see the actual detail of the report before commenting comprehensively. But on the last point that you just raised in your question, Kieran, there has been an ongoing for decades. You'll have two sides of a debate about whether or not you go off the shelf or whether or not it's important to have an Australian defence industry that's vibrant and able to meet the needs of the Defence Forces here. I think it is important that we have defence capability in this country, and that you do, to ensure that that exists, you need to have investment that underpins it. So, both sides of politics for some time, have recognised the importance of the defence industry of this nation, and I think you'll have a bipartisan commitment, particularly from areas that benefit, say, for example, in South Australia, that benefit from that investment. And I think it is important that we just don't, in some cases you will need to get off the shelf where the capability is already, or the actual product itself is there and needs to meet an immediate need, and I totally get and understand that. But at the same time too, you can't, if you want to have a degree of self-reliance, you just can't have a situation where you don't have this investment here. Now we wait for the report to come out, see what it says, and I imagine that Defence Minister Stephen Smith will deal with this in a very thorough way. Josh
Frydenberg, finally, your thoughts on this? Is it subsidising employment over what would be a more cost-effective approach?
No, look, we're absolutely committed to the Australian domestic defence industry and to jobs in South Australia in the defence sector. But the Collins-class submarines, it's well known, have had huge amounts of problems. This government couldn't float a rubber ducky, Kieran. I mean, let's face it. And they're not really committed to defence. And I want to point out one statistic, that defence spending in this country has fallen to 1.54% of GDP under Julia Gillard, the lowest level since 1938. So while countries in our region like India are spending more than 2%, the Singaporeans more than 3.5%, the South Koreans more than 2.5%, and the Americans a whopping 4.7% of their GDP goes on defence. Australia is downsizing its military. And that's while we've got troops in the field in Afghanistan, and while there is greater instability in our region, particularly on the Korean Peninsula and elsewhere. So, look, we need to have the serious boys in charge of defence, and we need, therefore, to have a bipartisan commitment to increase our defence spending over time. Unfortunately, under this government, it's gone down.
Gentlemen, that's all we've got time for this morning. Appreciate it today and throughout the year. As we head into the Christmas break, have a good break with your families, and a happy 12th of the 12th of the 12th.
Can I say just, Kieran, that today I have one of my constituents, little Tommy Gilbert, probably the next Michael Clark in the Australian cricket team, who's turning 12 today.
Yeah, good stuff. Good on you, Tommy.
Yeah, no, 12 today. Happy birthday. Yeah, he's a good boy too. Thank you, Josh and Ed. Appreciate it. That's all we've got time for in that half of the program. After the break, Sarah Hanson-Young, Senator Hanson-Young, the Green Senator, joining me.